Once upon a time, eons ago, in a far-off land, there lived a king. But not just any king. This king had everything and anything a normal human being could possibly want. He had riches, power, fame, and glory. Not to mention, he was popular with the ladies. What more could he ask for? He was successful and loved by everybody. But why did he feel so empty? What was he missing that made him so discontent? All his life, he had been pursuing after one thing: happiness. Why couldn't he find happiness in wealth, women, and power? I mean, maybe he did feel pleasure, a pleasure that only lasted for a split second. But what he truly wanted was to have happiness that would last him for a lifetime. Fortunately, his story doesn't end with him on his deathbed dying miserably unhappy, never finding the secret to his long life desire. Actually, after trying to find happiness in so many materialistic things, he finally decides that he is doing everything wrong and tries out something different, something he really hasn't done in a while. Perhaps he tried this at the beginning of his life, and like almost every other fairy tale ending, the king lived happily ever after. However, King Solomon's story can hardly suffice to be compared to any fairy tale. It's far greater than any fable ever told. And how do we accomplish this longed after happiness? Please bow your heads with me as I kneel for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for the opportunity of giving me the opportunity to be able to speak this evening. Lord, I ask that you may be with me, that the words I speak are not my words but yours, and that you may help me with my nerves. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. During the majority of King Solomon's life, he struggled to answer these questions we all, as human beings, struggle with. What makes me happy? And how can I be happy forever? We all answer these questions in our own ways. Some may find happiness in the high drugs give you, others in finishing a 10-season TV series in a span of 3 days, or paying out on all the food their heart desires. But what do all these things have in common? They're all temporary material things. Ecclesiastes 1:2 says, "Vanity of vanities," said the preacher, "vanity of vanities. All is vanity." And it's true. Vanity is emptiness. And when you try to fulfill that yearning for happiness with materialistic things, it would only make sense that you'll ultimately feel empty in the end. I'm sure King Solomon can attest to that. In fact, the preacher refers to King Solomon himself. Ecclesiastes 1:12 proves this to us. I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. Let's take a look at what he continues to say in chapter 2. If you open your Bibles to Ecclesiastes 2, verses 1 through 11, it says, I said in mine heart, go to now. I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasures, and behold, this is also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doth it? I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. Verse 4. I made me great works, I built me houses, I planted me vineyards, I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possession of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of provinces. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delight of the sons of men, as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and the vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. He did all this, and he still did not find happiness. In his own words, there was no profit under the sun. King Solomon looked at everything that his hands had wrought and thought to himself, this is completely pointless. Now imagine with me, you are standing in an open balcony overlooking vast gardens filled with lush greenery. And as you look into the distance, you see the soaring towers that you built with your sweat, gold, and power. You can see all the servants and subjects bustling around, obeying your every command. Then, thinking to yourself, you ask, what is the point of life? Why am I so unhappy? Similarly, King Solomon felt that way. We build our own picture-perfect kingdoms with the hopes and dreams that they will make us happy for the rest of our lives, and that one day we will be able to look back on our deathbeds and think, wow, what a fulfilling life I lived. I'm so happy I could die now. And bam, just like that, you're dead. There are 2 steps in happiness, which are, first, we have to realize we are not perfect. We do not live perfect lives, and there will always be trials. And 2, material things will not bring us joy. In all honesty, nothing in this world will bring us joy. These things bring us pleasure, and the difference between joy and pleasure is that pleasure is fleeting, while joy is permanent. Wouldn't you rather experience joy for an eternity than short-term pleasure? Spirit of Prophecy says, the errors and follies of the present time are an exaggerated repetition of those of the past ages. One generation after another give themselves up the vain pursuits of happiness in the world, a pursuit which ends in disappointment, and too often in despair. The way of true happiness remains the same in all ages. Humans have been wired to seek for happiness. But could it be possible that we've been doing it all wrong? Mrs. White says that we too often give ourselves up to the vain pursuit of happiness in the world. Is there another way to find happiness? A way that is not vain? From generation to generation, we have been vainly seeking for earthly happiness. Let's take another look at King Solomon's life. We all know that he was allegedly the wise king. The first thing we think of when we hear his name is wisdom. But if King Solomon was so blessed with wisdom, then why didn't he realize the earthly pleasures were not enough to fulfill his longing for something more, something greater? We have to take a look at who had given Solomon his wisdom. God. God blessed Solomon with his great wisdom, but the gifts that God gives us also have to be in correlation to our obedience to him. God only wants what's best for us. It only makes sense that when he has blessed us, we should obey him. Solomon had put his wisdom on the back burner because he was so preoccupied with what the world had to offer that his full potential of wisdom was not there. Sure, at first Solomon had begun as a young godly man, but distracted by the vain pursuit of happiness, he fell away. And I'm sure we can all connect with this. Could it be possible that the pursuit of happiness we are trying to chase isn't a pursuit of happiness, but a pursuit of misery? It seems that many people are coming to the same painful, brutal, awful conclusion, to history's wisest fool, that life lived only in the pursuit of what we enjoy invariably enslaves and disappoints us. If we look at the math, there seems to be a pattern in all this, whether it be trying to meet our satisfaction with the minimalist theory of thinking that the less we have, the more we are satisfied. or the materialistic theory that the more we have, the more we want. The better we'll feel about ourselves. Those are just misconceptions. When we seek for happiness in temporary things of the world, it seems that we will only receive temporary happiness. So then, where can this permanent, genuine happiness come from? Not even web searches on self-help and self-improvement can help you in this one. Let's take a look at the question, what is another way to find happiness that is not vain? Let's take another look at King Solomon's life. It doesn't just end with him falling away. No, God always goes after those who have wandered astray. And King Solomon is no exception. King Solomon found the treasure he had been searching for on his long pursuit of happiness. In Ecclesiastes 8:12, it says, "Though a sinner do evil 100 times, and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him." He says, it shall be well with them that fear God. That's the answer to this seemingly endless pursuit of happiness that we humans have been wired to chase after all our lives, God. The heart is the happiest that has Christ as an abiding guest. The answer is so obvious. Most of us have grown up with the answers at our fingertips. I mean, I'm sure everybody here is a Christian. We all have heard sermons about these kinds of things. God is the answer to everything. If you want to be happy, then go to God. If you have no idea what you're doing, then go to God. If you ever need someone to talk to because you feel alone, you guessed it, God's there for you. And I'm here to tell you tonight that although you have been conditioned to hear God is the answer to everything statement, this is just a reminder that it's true. You know, we as humans, when we hear a certain idea, thing, place, or whatever it may be, we get used to it. It becomes normal and regular to us. And that kind of fascination that once might have had, it becomes monotonous. But we need to maintain that amazing, stupendous, spectacular, and any other synonym of amazing. Fact is, God is the answer. It says in Ecclesiastes 3:14, "I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth all that men should fear before him." Whatever God may do in our lives, it will be forever. The happiness that he gives us through him is forever. That every such one would listen to the voice of Jesus. "If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink." Those are the words. Those who drink of the living water will thirst no more for frivolous, exciting amusement. Christ, the wellspring of life, is the foundation of peace and happiness. Another example of a person that the Bible gives us is found in John 4, the story of the woman at the well. I'm sure many of us are familiar with this story, so we won't read it word for word, but here's a little something to refresh your memories. Jesus was traveling and he stopped in the city of Samaria and sat near the well because he was tired. At this point, a woman of Samaria was coming to get water. Then Jesus says to her, "Give me to drink." The woman wondered and asked why Jesus, a Jew, would ask her, a Samaritan, for some water. He then goes on by responding in verse 11, "If thou knowest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, 'Give me to drink,' thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water." She then asks where she can find this living water. Jesus answers by saying to her, "Well, there is this well here, and whoever drinks from this well will thirst again, but whoever drinks from the water I give shall thirst no more." Christ spoke words of life to that woman at the well. Whoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. John 4:13 and 14. And those are still the exact words he speaks to us today. We know that only Jesus can satisfy. It's only him who can bring us out of this pursuit of misery that we are so conditioned to live in. It is a choice we make tonight and every day for the rest of our lives. Looking at King Solomon and the Samaritan woman, they were both sinful people trying to be happy in this sinful world. Like them, we are the same. Living as if we have a false idea of it in the first place. In the end, there was hope for both of them. They found happiness that can only be found in looking at Christ and away from our own pursuits. I recently heard a story of a man who loved art. It was his passion. He aspired to be the next Leonardo da Vinci, the next Michelangelo. The passion wasn't a simple choice in his life. It was in his blood. He grew up painting and drawing. This was his every desire, and it never wavered. While his brothers were not sure what they wanted, he had his dreams set. One day, at the age of 16, he was walking down the street, and he thought he heard the Lord speaking to him. He didn't actually hear a voice, it was God speaking to his heart, but it was there. It said, I want you to put aside your artist ambitions and prepare for a life of service in the ministry. This man was terrified. He replied saying, No, Lord, I have everything laid out. Art is my consuming interest. He put the thought on the back burner and convinced himself that his mind was playing tricks with him, but it kept coming back. It kept nagging at his brain. It became one of his greatest struggles in life, but he never shared it with anyone. For 2 years, the battle went on. Towards the end of his senior year of high school, his father asked him what he wanted to do, to pick any school he wanted to go to. And he didn't make his decision. A few weeks before graduation, he got out of bed to go to school, and it's as if probation had closed. He heard the father's voice once again, saying, Today is the day you make up your mind. He went to school that day, and all day he struggled with the thought. When he got home, the house was empty. He paced back and forth, praying and struggling with the decision. Finally, in act of defiance, he turned up and said, It's too great of a price. I won't pay it. The story goes on with his mom coming home and praying with him and asking what was wrong. Together they sought for the Lord, but it was as if he was gone. This man went through art school, and his talent didn't go unnoticed. He graduated top of his class. Unfortunately, the Great Depression struck, and he couldn't find a job. When he finally found a job, he worked as a person who pumped gas into cars at Texaco. At this moment, the president of the Art Institute, which he had studied at, wrote him a letter offering him a job with a salary of $300 a month. This letter got lost, and the man didn't receive it until years later, when he had finally surrendered himself to God. And when he responded, he said he was no longer interested. Like this man, we go after our dreams and aspirations, and we make them the center of our lives because we think we will find happiness in these things. Psalm 16:11 says, Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is the fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. Instead of pursuing happiness, let's all pursue God, the creator and bringer of genuine happiness. Please kneel with me as I pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and for giving us another day of life. Lord, I ask that you may be with each and every one of us, that we may completely and totally surrender our lives to you, and that we may find permanent happiness in you and not just pleasure. Lord, I ask that you may be with us as we go throughout the day, the rest of the evening, and the rest of the school year, that we look for the good and that we find positive in every find positive. We look for we we have a positive mindset. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.